Hello, Erica here today. Today I'm going to be bringing you reviews of 3 short story collections that I read recently. The first book I'm going to talk about is Pastoralia by George Saunders. I just finished this collection in mid-June and I really adored it. I'd previously read 10th of December by George Saunders a couple of years ago and absolutely loved it. I actually read it in one sitting, which rarely happens to me for short stories. So I was very excited to pick this up. This book was published in 2000 and this is self-proclaimed stories and a novella. So there are 5 short stories and 1 novella. George Saunders' writing style is really unique and very interesting in that it has a very literary fiction vibe to it, and the writing style and the way of storytelling reminds me of a lot of contemporary literary fiction, but at the same time he kind of blends these science fiction elements into it, almost dystopian, post-apocalyptic, futuristic science fiction elements, but it's very subtly done and it's very realistically done. It doesn't take any stretch of the imagination really to imagine the world in which his stories are set. And a lot of his stories have quite bizarre premises which are very interesting, but they also have such a raw, emotional, and human element to them that I very much appreciate. I find with George Saunders that not all of his characters are very likable or very good people, but that they are very fully realized and very well developed, which I always admire from short story authors because they have so little space to do that in. I think my favorite story in this collection was one called Sea Oak, which is about a male character who's working in a restaurant, and it's kind of set in our world, but the restaurant is like part restaurant, kind of part strip club almost. Like the male waiters are rated based on their looks and they're kind of encouraged to be all sexy and things like that, and so it caters to diners who are interested in that. But he lives with his sisters and his aunt, and they live in poverty, and some very interesting events take place. So I really enjoyed that story, but I thought all of these were very solid, all 4 or 5 stars in my book, and I gave the collection overall 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I'm going to talk about I read during the 24 and 48 readathon, and that is The Beggar Maid by Alice Munro. Again, I'm not new to Alice Munro. I read Dear Life by her last year, and I did a full review of it, which I will link down below. I absolutely loved that collection. It's still one of my favorite collections of short stories to this day. So I was really excited to get back into her. The subtitle of this collection is Stories of Flo and Rose, and that is because it does follow these 2 characters, Flo and Rose, throughout the story, so it kind of builds upon their life. It's similar almost in style to like Olive Kittredge or This Is How You Lose Her by Junot Diaz, in that it builds a story throughout the short story, so it kind of plays with that line between a collection of stories and a novel. This book was originally published in 1977, and like I found before with Munro's work, it focuses on quaint Canadian life. For those of you who don't know, Alice Munro is a Canadian author. She recently, in the last few years, I think in 2013, but I'm not positive, won the Nobel Prize for Literature, and she's just very accomplished. But she focuses on kind of quaint community life in country towns in the early half of the 20th century, and this did not fail to live up to my expectations for that. When you hear about her stories, or if I were to give you a summary of one of the stories, which I don't think I'm going to do, they sound pretty bland and pretty unexciting. But the thing that Alice Munro does very, very well is fully develop her characters, and she works with imagery in a way that you really feel the sense of time and place from her. I absolutely love this as well. I didn't love it quite as much as Dear Life. Some of the short stories fell a little bit flatter for me, but I would say that if I had to rate them individually, there wouldn't be one less than 3 stars. So I also gave this collection 4 out of 5 stars. The last collection I'm going to talk about I actually read in June, and that is The Thing Around Your Neck by Chimamanda and Ngozi Adichie. I am sure that many of my viewers are very familiar with Chimamanda and Ngozi Adichie. I have previously read Half of a Yellow Sun, and in May I also read Americana, which I loved, so I was very excited to get into her only published collection of short stories to date. This collection was published in 2009, so I believe that's after Half of a Yellow Sun but before Americana. Like her novels, this focuses on themes of Nigerian life, focuses on Nigerian Americans, and it also focuses on the immigrant experience from Nigeria to the U.S. So that is a similar vein running throughout the stories, but we find characters in all sorts of different situations. I felt like this collection overall really focused on a lot of fantastic female characters and their situations and how they coped either with life in Nigeria or with life in the U.S. as a Nigerian woman, which I very much enjoyed. Adichie's writing in these short stories does not differ much from her novels. It's really beautiful and descriptive without being too heavy or dense. And what I think Adichie does really well is that her interactions between her characters are so vivid, but at the same time so plausible and so true to life. So that definitely was apparent in these stories as well. My favorite story in this collection, I really like the title story, but I also liked a story called, what was it called? On Monday of last week, which portrays a Nigerian American woman who's kind of a nanny to this boy, and his family has quite a bit of money, but his mother is home all day. She's just an artist working in the basement. And so even though she's home, the protagonist still has to watch the son, and kind of an interesting character arc develops from there. So yes, I very much enjoyed this as well, and I gave this 4 stars as well. So those are some more details about some of the short story collections I've read recently. If you've read any of these and would like to discuss them in the comments, let's do it. And if you have any recommendations of short story authors or collections that I should read based on my enjoyment of these 3 authors, please do let me know. I'm always on the lookout for new collections and new authors who really have refined the medium of the short story. And that is all, and I will be back soon. Bye!